And for those of you all that have mothers that have gone on, because of this next song, you'll be able to see her again. Okay? Because I know who I have believed, and that belief and faith will get us to where our missing mothers are. So join us in singing, I know whom I have believed.
I know not why God's wondrous grace to me He has made known, nor why unworthy Christ in love redeemed me for His own. But I know whom I have believed and am persuaded that He is able to keep that which I've committed unto Him against that day. I know not how this saving faith to me He did impart, nor how believing in His word brought peace within my heart. But I know whom I have believed and am persuaded that He is able to keep that which I've committed unto Him against that day. I know not when my Lord may come at night or noonday fair, nor if I'll walk the vale with Him or meet Him in the air. But I know whom I have believed and am persuaded that He is able to keep that which I've committed unto Him against that day.
We're going, if you haven't noticed, we're going way back for a lot of songs today. Some of them I had never heard, which says a lot since I grew up like a lot of you all in the church. But it was good to learn new songs. And for some of you all, this one may be a new one, but the preacher's sermon today is on belief, so believing goes right along with it.
This one's 1921.
So there's a few of us that might have been around back then.
Don't look at me.
Who's getting
I feel like I was around back then.
But you've got to believe, and that's important.
Fear not, little flock, from the cross to the throne, from death into life, He went for His own. All power in earth, all
sometimes I think we ought to pay more attention to that. Believe more and follow God more. This is a fun one that I just learned this week. If you believe. You know, it talks about Paul and Silas. They believed. They were locked in a jail. They weren't looking to get out. They were just praising God and praying. God shook the whole jail, and they ended up getting out because they believed. So that's what we all need to do. If you believe. We're going to have to do that again sometime. I'll see you in the rapture. You know, some of us, our mothers have gone on ahead of us. And this is a promise that God gave us. That one of these days we'll either be in heaven with everybody, or we'll be caught up into the clouds. And when that happens, we'll get to see all of those that have gone on before us. So join us in singing, I'll See You in the Rapture.
If we never meet again on this earth, my precious friend, if to God we have been true and we've been born again, then must there be a greeting, there's gonna be a meeting. I'll see you in the rapture some sweet day. see you in the rapture. See you in the rapture. See you at that meeting in the air. Here with our blessed Savior, we'll live and reign forever. I'll see you in the rapture some sweet day. To my loved ones, let me say that there'll surely come a day when the Lord will come again, and He'll take His bride away. So ready now to meet Him, and hallelujah greet Him. I'll see you in the rapture some sweet day. I'll see you in the rapture. See you in the rapture. See you in the meeting in the air. There with the blessed Savior, we'll live and reign forever. I'll see you in the rapture some sweet day.
I'm looking forward to that. Build my mansion next door to Jesus. You know, this is one of those old ones that's been around a long time. And, you know, when we get to heaven, we're not going to be living in the sorts of things that we are today. Pay real close attention to the second verse.
I have no mansion, no earthly kingdom, but my cabin will do till I get home. My mansion yonder on the hills of glory. Oh, I hope my mansion sits near the throne. So build my mansion next door to Jesus, and tell the angels I'm coming home. It doesn't matter who lives around me, just so my mansion sits near the throne. My mother's mansion may be close by me, across the golden avenue. She was the first one to teach me of heaven, and the very first to tell me about you. So build my mansion next door to Jesus, and tell the angels I'm coming home. It doesn't matter who lives around me, just so my mansion sits near the throne.
You know, that second verse, it talks about mothers being the first one to teach us about Jesus. But fathers are supposed to be the spiritual leaders of their households. So fathers, you're not off the hook. You've got a responsibility too.
I hate to tell you, Bruce, but you're on the wrong week. Like he said, he needs a lot of help. I could use a little myself, come to think of it. Something amusing happened to me this week. As most of you know, I flip on the computer quite often, sit in front of it and read things. And I looked this week and I thought, well, I wonder if any of the other guys, pastors of other churches, have found anything new to say about Mother's Day, because as you might imagine, you know, after 50 plus years of preaching Mother's Day sermons, it gets pretty much same thing over and over. And I looked at this one topic and it said, a short Mother's Day sermon. And I thought, well, you know, that might be interesting to try something short for Mother's Day, and I knew Sharon would like that if no one else did. And then I looked at it and it said that it would take an hour and 2 minutes. So that's too much for shortness. Well, today we're going to talk about Mother's Day. And we're going to be reading from the book of Hebrews, beginning with the 11th chapter, the first and second verse, and then we're going to drop down to the 23rd verse. Hebrews 11, 1 and 2 says, now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. And then dropping down to the 23rd verse, we read about a couple of these ancients that are mentioned here in the first two verses. The 23rd verse says, by faith Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born, because they saw he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. Giving birth and motherhood are two far different things. There are women giving birth to children, babies, in our world today, but they have never assumed the role of motherhood. You know what I'm talking about. If you lived around the time of about 1400 BC, and you lived somewhere in the domain of Egypt, it was not a popular time to be a mother. If you recall in that story of Egypt, because the Israelites had grown to a large number there in Egypt, and they were working for Egypt, the Egyptians became fearful that they might increase in number to the point that they could overthrow the Egyptians. So the Egyptian leaders, the kings, said, have all the male children slain at birth. And so they assigned midwives. They didn't have the medical care that we have today in the hospitals and so on and so forth. So they said, they assigned the midwives, and they said, now when you help a woman give birth to a child, if that is a male child, you kill that child immediately. And so motherhood was not a desirable state, because about 50% of their children were going to be killed at birth. Now, the killing of the male children as opposed to the female children came about because they feared that the male children would grow into soldiers, but they did not fear the female babies because they felt that they would grow into women who could be swayed under the Egyptian rule, and they would just simply fall into the Egyptian bondage. There was a couple in those days, a couple by the name of Jochebed and Amram. Ladies, if you have nothing else to be grateful for today, you can be grateful that your name was not Jochebed. First of all, your husband would probably never learn to spell it correctly. And probably, if you were from Arkansas, you'd never learn to pronounce it correctly. Jochebed and Amram were the mother and the father of Moses. Jochebed was a woman who came from good stock, so to speak. She was the daughter of Levi. And for those Bible students here, you will remember that Levi is the head of the tribe that became the religious leaders of the Israelites. And so she rubbed shoulders with her father, who was, as I say, became the head of the religious tribe of Israel. She knew about different things. Now, we have to take into context and into the situation. She didn't know about Moses leading the children of Israel out of bondage. That hadn't occurred. She knew only of the stories of Noah and the flood. She knew only of the stories of Adam and Eve. She knew only of the stories of Abraham. But she was a woman who had rubbed shoulders with faithful people. She was the wife of Amram, and Amram too was a man of religion, a man of belief, a man of faith. He believed in God. Also, she was his aunt at the same time. So remember that they preferred that their families married into their families because they didn't want to get any of that tainted blood involved in their their family tree. Much the opposite of how we feel today. She had not heard of many things, but she had heard of one thing. She had heard that Abraham's wife Sarah, when she was an old woman, she gave birth to Isaac. And so she had faith that God could perform miracles in such a way that childbirth, which was for the younger, could also be accomplished through the older women of that day. She was not childless at the time. She had 2 children. She had a son and a daughter by the name of Miriam, and a son by the name of Aaron. But she became pregnant once again. They say that she was about 130 years old at the time. That would be so the unexpected. And she and her husband, when the child was born, they saw that he was not an ordinary child. The scriptures don't tell us what being not an ordinary child might have looked like at that time. We don't know if he was longer than most babies, or maybe shorter. Or maybe he had a full head of hair, a full mouth of teeth. Maybe he was very strong, or maybe he was very weak. Maybe he was more beautiful than any baby had been up until that point, or possibly the ugliest baby that was ever born. But somehow, Amram and Jochebed looked at this baby Moses, and they saw that he was not an ordinary child. Now, it is believed, not in the scriptures, but it is believed in secular writing, that Jochebed had served as a midwife. And so it could have been that she had friends that were serving as midwives, and so when Moses was born, they helped her. And so there could have been a plan that had been set aside that this is what we're going to do. We don't know how this came about. We just know that the scriptures tell us in the book of Hebrews, and we can read about this in the book of Exodus, and we can read about the birth of Moses there, but we don't know how the plan came about. But Moses was born, not an ordinary child. And they hid him, the mother and the father together. They hid him, and they hid him for a period of 3 months. And in their hiding, they devised another plan. We've got to do something for the longevity of his life. And so they placed him in a basket. And they prepared the basket so that it would not leak water. And they hid it in the Nile River, knowing that that is where the Pharaoh's daughter came to bathe. And so they hid this baby in this basket in the Nile River. And the Pharaoh's daughter came to bathe, and probably, the baby may have made a noise or cried or whimpered or something. And Pharaoh's daughter found the baby, took him into Pharaoh's household, and raised him as an Egyptian prince. In a time when they said, don't have any male babies. Motherhood, as I said, was not really desired at that particular time in history. And we have no reason to believe that Moses was a planned birth. There's nothing that says, well, God sent them this son. There's nothing that says that. We do know that later in life, Moses and his brother and his sister, Miriam and Aaron, all three were known as prophets. So we know that they turned out not to be ordinary people, but servants of God. We don't know all the details of how Jochebed, Aram, and along with Miriam, by the way, she was involved in this plot as well of hiding the baby. And had this plot become publicized, it's a possibility that all of them could have lost their life because of this. So they all showed great courage and great ability to accomplish this. And it has been said, again, this is secular, this is not scriptural. It is said that because Moses was a not ordinary baby, that Jochebed gave birth with little or no pain. Now, I can't describe that. I don't want to go into detail trying to describe that. All I can say is from what the stories I've heard, I don't want to know anything about the pain of childbirth. I know that in the book of Genesis that God said there would be pain in childbirth because of the sin of Adam and the sin of Eve, but I don't want to get involved in that. What I want us to understand is that God had a hand in this, whether or not we understand or see what was going on. And so that brings us over to where I want to go today. In the book of Judges, we are led to believe that Gideon was informed in the night that God needed a leader. And I thought about that, and I thought about, well, just suppose that in the day of Jochebed, just suppose that one morning she got up and she went down to the watering hole, or the well, so it was, to gather water for the family. And during the night, someone had posted a sign. We in Oakland City, we have IGA, and on IGA we have a board, and people go in there and post, we need this, we need that, so on and so forth. Just suppose that they had a message board there at the watering trough or the watering hole, and that there was a message that no one could explain that said, needed a mother, someone to give birth in this time. You think Jochebed would have said, hey, let it be me? I seriously doubt it. But somehow through the workings of God and through the human nature and things taking the path that human nature takes, Jochebed found that she was expecting a child. And I just wonder if she had ever thought about what her resume would have been had she applied for this job. And I came up with 3 things that I believe that Jochebed should have listed on her resume. Some of these other things about her family and so on and so forth, they probably would have been interesting as well, but I think that the 3 things that Jochebed should have listed and that women today need in the resume of motherhood is faith in God first. I believe that to try to raise a child in the world in which we live, or the world in which she lived, would have been a futile attempt had it not been for her faith in God. Somehow she believed. Somehow she had belief that brought about courage that few would have had. To try to protect that male child in such a way. I know mothers protect their children. You've all heard the stories that, as I've heard the stories, she's a nice lady, but you go after her children and she'll fight you tooth and nail. And we know that's true. And I believe that of Jochebed too. But Jochebed had a faith that brought about courage that is far beyond normal courage. And it is It's a faith that needs to be in mothers today, a belief in God, not an understanding. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying to you that you have to understand all the workings of God. I'm saying that you have to believe in God and the workings and say, I don't understand it, but I believe it. And I believe that Jochebed was like that. Oh, she probably looked back at the flood and said, oh, I don't understand that. I don't understand how you got that dinosaur on that ark. That came out Sunday school this morning, by the way. A lot of questions that we don't have answers to. I don't care. They don't bother me. I still believe in God. And women, that is what I'm saying to you today is believe in God, that God is working even though we can't see how or why. The second thing is Jochebed had, and you need today, is faith in others. And I pause there intentionally because in the world in which we live, having faith in others is very, very difficult. I can believe in God. You can believe in God. But when you see your fellow man and some of the things that they are doing in the world today, it makes you want to give up and say, I don't believe that there's a good person left on earth. Jochebed knew better. She relied on the midwife. She relied on her daughter. She relied on others that would have known. I thought you had a baby. What happened to that baby? Don't you know they would have been whispering, gossiping? What happened to that baby? We don't know what happened to it. She trusted enough in other people to do something that was out of the ordinary. And we, you, me, all of us need to trust in people enough that we do something out of the ordinary, that we reach out to help people that seemingly don't want our help. When we drive by that person at the intersection who has their hand out, we need to stop and think just a moment or two. I know there's a lot of panhandlers out there that you can't trust. But if there's one out there that you can trust and you help, it just might take them over the edge. So we need to trust people. Jochebed did. And look what it produced for her. And thirdly, we need to trust her family. That too, by the way, is sometimes difficult. I sat there this morning during our time of testimony, and I didn't say anything. I thought about it, thought about a lot of things that I should say. After we dismiss here today, my wife and I will be going to our daughter-in-law's. As some of you know, we lost our oldest son almost 4 years ago. And his widow is still considered as much of our family as she ever was while we were together. We didn't separate family because we lost a son. We're still together, and we'll be going to her home for Mother's Day dinner. She and my granddaughter came to our house and planted flowers for my wife for her Mother's Day gift. We need to trust our family. My family is as crazy as any family in this group. Guarantee you. And sometimes I wonder, why, oh why, God, couldn't you have given me one member of my family with sanity? And he keeps saying, yes, I know, I'm going to get to you. That's what you're wanting. He keeps saying, well, you've got your wife. And I keep saying to him, sanity? I don't think that in. Bruce went into tears when he talked about Gina. I usually cry when I talk about my wife too, but for a different reason. But I don't want anyone to tell her this, and make sure that she doesn't hear. But for 61 years, we've sort of been tied together, you know, in a knot, and I can't untie the knot, so I guess I've just learned to live with it. But yeah, I got one of a kind. There's no doubt about it. And we hope they don't make another one like that. But I wouldn't trade this one for, well, a brand new penny, I guess. 2 cents maybe I would, but not a brand new penny. We have to trust our family. My wife has been my person that I could trust. I trust her with any and everything and all things. And we need to trust our family. They're going to let us down. They do. Just when you think that everything's like it should be, somebody's going to stump their toe and do something different. But you don't give up on family. And as I look at Jochebed and I look at the resume that she wrote with her life, she believed in God, she believed in others, and she believed in her family. And it proved worthwhile. Now, most of us know the story that Moses grew up in the household of the Pharaoh, and one day he goes out and he sees the Egyptians abusing the Israelites, and he raises up and he kills an Egyptian. And he escapes, and he goes to the backside of the Midian desert. And there he marries, there he starts a family, so on and so forth. But God calls him through that burning bush, and he comes back. This one man, this baby, this one that Jochebed believed in, came back, and he stood up to Pharaoh, and he said, my God said, let my people go. And he brought Israel out of the Egyptian bondage. I want to wish all you ladies a very, very, very happy Mother's Day. And I pray that this day will be everything that you desire it to be and more. And I want you to know the love and joy that comes from being a mother, along with pain and agony. But most of all, I want you to know that as a mother, you're not alone. Oh, nor the rest of us. But as a mother, you're not alone, because God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. God so loves you that he is constantly with you. As our singers come, I'm going to ask you to stand. And while I spoke most